Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? So, Microsoft's acquisition of ZeniMax and Bethesda and the subsidiary studios has become official today. It's all gone through. Over the weekend, everything got final approval from the necessary regulatory bodies, and the deal has apparently been signed today. So, as you can imagine, they've released a couple of statements, both Microsoft and Bethesda, covering what's going on, what might be happening in the future, and all that sort of thing. So, some good news in here, a little bit of less good news, particularly for those on PlayStation, I think, but also some interesting stuff. So let's jump in and have a little look at these statements that the two companies have made and see what we can pull out of it, see what we can speculate on, and generally consider what might be coming in the future for both Microsoft and for Bethesda. Okay then, so first up we're going to have a look at the Microsoft announcement. This is the main thing we're going to have a look at. Bethesda have also made one, but in general there's not a lot of information there. It sort of expands a little bit on what we have here on the Microsoft side, but it basically echoes the same thing, which is much what we'd expect, I think, under this. So, officially welcoming Bethesda to Team Xbox. That's from Phil Spencer, who's head of Xbox, as of this morning. So, publisher of iconic gaming franchises will expand Xbox's diverse portfolio on Xbox Game Pass. So short term, this is the first big impact of this. Obviously, everything's just gone through today. So the first thing that's going to occur is more Bethesda games and games from the subsidiary studios as well appearing on Xbox Game Pass, which is good for Xbox players and PC players in particular. It just means an additional way to get hold of those games and to explore them. Both Game Pass on both PC and Xbox is a reasonably good service. There's a lot of open-endedness to it. So if you're wanting to try things out, and particularly if you already have Game Pass, that's definitely good news for you. It's something I've been pondering doing on PC, picking up Game Pass for PC and maybe exploring some things that I might not otherwise have done. On the other hand, I also have a massive backlog of games to get through, so swings and roundabouts, we'll see. So, today we officially complete the acquisition of ZeniMax Media, parent company of Bethesda Softworks. It's been an honour to welcome the 8 incredibly talented development studios, Bethesda Game Studios, obviously the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series, id Software, who are behind Doom, ZeniMax Online Studios, who make Elder Scrolls Online, Arcane Studios, who are behind Prey and Dishonored, Machine Games are the people behind Wolfenstein, Tango Gameworks, who made The Evil Within and the upcoming Ghostwire Tokyo, which looks pretty interesting, and then Alpha Dog Studios and Roundhouse Studios as well, but those two I am not so familiar with. So, and their passionate global communities to the Xbox family. Now everything is official, we can begin working together to deliver more great games to everyone. Our goal is to give these teams the best foundation for doing their greatest work and to learn from them as we continue to build Xbox into an inclusive platform for all players. Sounds nice, also sounds like corpo speak. So, not too much faith in that particular comment, but some of it's definitely good. This is the next step in building an industry-leading first-party studio team, a commitment we have to our Xbox community. With the addition of Bethesda's creative teams, gamers should know Xbox consoles, PC, and Game Pass will be the best place to experience new Bethesda games, including some new titles in the future that will be exclusive to Xbox and PC players. So there's the body blow for the PlayStation players. Obviously, this is mostly stuff we've heard before. It's just sort of reiterating the things that they've been implying for a few months in September when the deal was initially announced. As we shared previously, it's vitally important that Bethesda continues making games the way it always has. We look forward to empowering Bethesda's creative teams to reach even more players around the world, helping to make future Bethesda titles the biggest and most popular games in their history. Xbox and Bethesda have long shared a common vision for the future of gaming. Both as fans and creators, Bethesda understands the potential of Game Pass. Thank you to our players for joining us on this incredible journey, and to the millions of Bethesda fans around the world. Now that we're one team, we can start working together on our future ahead. We will have more to share about what's next for our teams later this year. In the meantime, to properly celebrate this moment, we're bringing additional Bethesda games into Xbox Game Pass later this week. Stay tuned for more details. So there's a few bits to unpack here. Obviously, starting with what would appear to be something of a body blow, as I say, to PlayStation players. Some new titles in the future that will be exclusive to Xbox and PC players. Now, it's vague and not completely surprising either. I think as much as I would have hoped to see zero exclusivity, and I do think zero exclusivity is the future of gaming, and Microsoft themselves are investing into basically cross-platform play and that sort of thing. Games being in as many places and being playable on as many devices as possible. It's an ecosystem and a structure that's got a long way to go, but they are investing quite heavily into that, so that kind of implies that exclusivity is living on borrowed time, which is something at least. Some new titles. This is obviously vague, but there's some implication there. And one of the biggest things that's been speculated on so far is that what sort of games might go exclusive, what might not. The consensus sort of suggestion was that the ones that might go exclusive would be the smaller, newer, less well-known titles, as opposed to the big flagship titles like, say, the Fallouts and the Elder Scrolls and such. My speculation here, judging by the tone of this as well, is I think that's probably going to be the case. I think we'll probably still see things like the next Elder Scrolls game, subsequent Fallout games, probably the Doom series, stuff like that. Those will remain cross-platform and available on all platforms, I suspect. You might find a delay in launch on PlayStation, things like that. Bethesda have long had a history of putting their games, Skyrim in particular, on as many platforms as possible. It goes for Doom and stuff as well. Appearing in places like even the Nintendo Switch, which is about as far out there as you're going to get, I think. So I think it's likely that things like that will continue, albeit at a sort of delayed rate. These things usually happen sometime on down the line from the initial launch of the game. So I think worst case scenario, things will appear on, say, PlayStation and probably still the Switch as well, but likely later. But they're focusing here on new titles, so the implication there, as I say, I think is probably that things that already exist won't be there. So you've got The Elder Scrolls 6 is iffy. It's a new title, same with Starfield really, but at the same time, it's already announced and it's part of a long-standing franchise that has a sizable player base on PlayStation. So locking them out seems like an unlikely thing for Microsoft and Bethesda to do. So my guess is it's more likely that, say, things like the upcoming Indiana Jones game or less well-known, smaller-scale titles, new IPs, things like that, they're more likely to be exclusives, which still sucks, but slightly less than it might do. Slightly. But that would be my guess as to what is going to go on. So, yeah, that's basically my take on this particular comment about exclusivity. Starfield obviously is a big question again, because that is a new IP, but it's also been long announced. It was announced back in 2018. That could be exclusive. I could see that happening, more so than Elder Scrolls, in fact, because it is a new IP, but whether or not it will... The other question, of course, is what work Bethesda have done on that game in the last however many years. If they've been working towards putting it on PlayStation as well as Xbox, then it seems unlikely that they'll chuck all of that hard work in the bin and make it a total waste of time. I would expect that probably will come to PlayStation as well, but it's sort of after that point that things get a little more up in the air. Like I say, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, that sort of thing, Doom, the big top-tier titles, I can't see those going exclusive. So back in the first paragraph, we have a comment here that is way more positive looking. One of the big things that we've all been speculating on and hoping for with this acquisition is that it will mean that Bethesda have Microsoft's resources, to at least an extent, to draw upon for development of future games. So better financial basis and potentially things like game engine, stuff like that. That one's a bit more out there, but the security of being in part of a massive, massive corporation like Microsoft is that they'll have much more funds potentially to draw on in their development of future games. And they're kind of nodding in that direction, sort of subtly hinting in that direction here. This is one of the few things that I would pick out that is also mentioned in the Bethesda article. I'll link that down below as well so you can have a look at that. But they're talking about the additional support they expect to receive from Microsoft in developing the games they're working on anyway, which is obviously something that we're all hoping to hear and wanting to see. Definitely Bethesda's ability to draw on a larger resource pool to make their games even better would definitely be the best outcome of this particular acquisition. So there's a good implication here with the goal to give these teams the best foundation for doing their greatest work. As I say, it's just, in some ways it's corporate... let's look on the bright side speech, but at the same time, in the Bethesda article, they have actually said directly that having more resources to draw upon from Microsoft will be something they're looking forward to taking advantage of going forward. So, fingers crossed that actually means good things for the future of Bethesda games. That should be really, really good. I know there's particularly things like the Starfield, the Elder Scrolls, and the Fallout. I'm looking at the BGS primarily here. Having more resources to draw on hopefully will mean more stable and more fewer bugs in the games, that sort of thing. And for games like 76 and also for ESO via ZeniMax Online Studios, increased content, hopefully. It would be nice if this meant that they could get together larger teams, get more people working on their games, sort of have a better basis to invest more into the game so that we can get more content, bigger content, and get it more often. Because obviously that's going to require sizable increases in the number of people working on the games. See, I know ESO puts out their content on a much larger scale more often than, say, 76 does, and the major reason for that is it is being worked on by pretty much an entire studio, as opposed to 76, which is being worked on by just part of a studio. So that hopefully bodes well for those games as well. It should be quite cool. So the last point I wanted to pick up on here is actually more from the Bethesda article, and it's again in this second paragraph that is the key part of this post that Pete Hines has put up on Bethesda.net. And that is that, first let me say that we're not making any landmark announcements or changes right now, and it's kind of echoed a little bit towards the end of the Xbox article as well. There's been some speculation over the last couple of days as to whether or not Bethesda and Microsoft were going to have some big kind of announcement or event type thing in the next few days to basically talk about what's going on between the two companies and what their vision is and what they're going to be doing soon. And some speculation as to whether or not games like Starfield might be getting a bit of a showcase there. Basically, both of these articles are heavily implying that that's not going to be the case. It looks like they're going to be talking more about the games that are going to be arriving first and foremost on Game Pass in the next few days, which is the big first step for them. So I suspect we'll be hearing more about that over the next couple of days, over the weekend perhaps. But as for big announcements, that sort of thing, looks like those rumours are not going to come to fruition from what they're saying here. So that's another interesting point. So, yeah, all in all, both these articles are quite short, and they don't talk about a huge amount of stuff that we haven't already heard or had reason to sort of figure out before. The exclusivity stuff, kind of, it's not great to have that confirmed in the way it is, but again, it's not massive surprise either. I suspect timed exclusives are more likely than outright it's not coming to other platforms, and as I say, I don't expect it'll hit the big flagship games like the Elder Scrolls and the like, mainly because they have such large established player bases across multiple platforms, and cutting those out would seem like not the best business decision ever. And as much as they want to move people to their own platforms, still cutting out a potentially large slice of the audience there. So with the big names, I can't see that happening, but again, we already know that games like Deathloop are going to be PlayStation exclusive. Microsoft and Bethesda have both said that's going to carry on as is, but it means future games will go the other way. They'll be Xbox exclusive. But I think the likely scenario there, as I say, is going to be things like Deathloop, and smaller scale games from the other studios are more likely to be the exclusive ones. And as I say, my bet would be timed. On the other hand, the confirmation that Bethesda are going to have more resources to draw on is definitely good news. It bodes well for the future games and hopefully the things they're going to be making on down the line. Hopefully more resources, more people to draw on, maybe a little bit cross-pollination with technology and things like that from other studios would be really, really good as well. Bethesda are in an odd position in a sense. They make some of the best open-world games there are. We obviously know this, we're all fans of. But there are also some other companies out there making some absolutely incredible open-world games. And they, particularly visually, I think it's fair to say, they're in danger of being left a little behind Bethesda. So if you look at the Fallout and Skyrims and stuff, it was quite quickly after that games that came out that were eclipsing the standard, the graphical standard at least, if not necessarily the story standards. So hopefully the acquisition by Microsoft will allow them to up their game in areas like that as well and give chase to those other studios that are making games in a similar space that are perhaps sort of making a little headway on Bethesda. So hopefully in that regard it'll be good for them in the future. Beyond that, we'll have to kind of wait and see for what they've actually got to say. Obviously, over the next few days we'll see what's going on to Xbox Game Pass, so for those who have it, PC players and Xbox players anyway, hopefully that means access to a few more games from the Bethesda portfolio, so that's always cool. Beyond that, I guess we'll have to wait and see. They're not planning, as they say here, on making any landmark changes right now. Beyond that, what that might mean for the future, it's difficult to say. Very, very tough to say until they're actually willing to announce. There's a lot of maybes, a lot of things that could occur, a lot of things that probably won't occur, but we'll have to wait and see and conclude as to what happens when it does. Obviously, I will bring you any updates as and when we get them. So, yeah, all in all, interesting to know this has gone through. Bit of a mixed bag of a day in terms of its news, but cautiously optimistic for some of it. Little disappointed for those on PlayStation, as I say, in other areas. But I think it's a smaller disappointment as we could have realistically expected on the exclusivity front. So half a loaf being better than none, maybe. Trying to look on the slightly brighter side. But it is what it is, not massively surprising. So, I hope you guys found this useful and informative. If you did, please do consider dropping likes and subs for me. It's very, very much appreciated. As I say, I'll be continuing to bring any news that we get as and when we get it on this particular front, and deliberating on what might be implied by the somewhat ambiguous statements that they do make on occasion. So do watch the space for that. If you'd like to keep up with me on social media, we've got links to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter down below the video as well, along with the merch store and channel memberships via that blue join button if you're interested in supporting the channel that way. It's hugely appreciated and helpful. So massive thanks to everybody who's done that already. And if you get a chance to join us for the live streams as well, we are approaching the final push on Cyberpunk 2077 and carrying on playing Fallout and having a really good time with that at the moment as well. So I do hope you'll join us for those. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.